In the year 2045, the Kurum Corporation, led by the prodigious genius Lee Se-jin, unveiled a hyper-realistic virtual reality game, which they proudly named Aries. The game quickly gained explosive popularity, amassing over 1 billion users in a remarkably short time. Eventually, the developers introduced a special in-game event, where players were tasked with breaking a peculiar wooden doll. Just 10 successful strikes would grant them a guaranteed premium-grade game capsule, valued at a staggering $50 million, along with a +5 bonus to all their stats. Yet, for over a year since Aries' launch, not a single player had managed to complete this event. Even the customer service department had grown anxious, fearing that frustrated players would soon accuse the developers of rigging the challenge to be impossible. The public relations officer was on the verge of submitting his resignation letter when, out of nowhere, an unidentified player, clearly our protagonist, stepped forward to take on the impossible task. At first, no one spared him even a glance, until he drew his sword and delivered a single, flawless, critical strike that cleaved the wooden doll cleanly in half. The entire crowd was left speechless. He had just become the first person to ever clear the event. The team leader immediately demanded a full background check on the mysterious player, only to find out that the weapon he used was merely an epic-grade sword, nothing exceptionally rare or divine. This discovery only fueled their curiosity, since he had managed to destroy the doll using nothing more than an epic weapon. Before this astonishing feat, however, Hyun Su had woken from a haunting dream in which his father was engulfed in flames, and he was powerless to save him. Later that morning, he met his close friend, Kim Jae-hoon, at the hospital lobby. Hyun Su wore a cap and a face mask to conceal his face from the world. Jae-hoon had requested this meeting, teasing Hyun Su playfully about being too handsome to stay hidden. He then gave a brief explanation about the game Aries, mentioning a new event designed exclusively for beginners. Jae-hoon explained that despite countless attempts by even the top-tier players, no one had managed to complete it. He went on to reveal the rewards offered for clearing the event, suggesting that the two of them should give it a try. Confident that Hyun Su's involvement could make a difference, Jae-hoon insisted they had a real chance of succeeding, though Hyun Su remained unsure what to make of it all. Soon after, Jae-hoon brought him to see the 10 million won gaming capsule he had purchased just to experience the game firsthand. Hyun Su was stunned to hear that his friend had spent that much money on a single capsule. He could hardly believe that 1 billion people were actively playing such an expensive game. Jae-hoon, however, believed it was a worthwhile investment, explaining that players could earn real-world money through the game, which was why its popularity had exploded. Still unimpressed, Hyun Su asked where he even got the capsule from. Jae-hoon called it a personal investment and reminded him that with Hyun Su's help, they stood a real chance at success. But Hyun Su simply couldn't grasp what Jae-hoon was getting at. His assigned class in the game, after all, would be that of a blacksmith. Finally, Hyun Su removed his cap, revealing the burn scars that covered his head from a terrible accident. His face was deeply disfigured, and he confessed that he wasn't in any condition to participate in something like this. It turned out that his father had been caught in a fire at his workshop, and Hyun Su had rushed in to save him. Although he succeeded in pulling his father out, the man never regained consciousness. Over his father's medical expenses, Hyun Su had taken up grueling labor jobs. One day, while hammering nails under his supervisor's orders, something he had mastered over a decade of blacksmithing, he realized something was terribly wrong. His hammer no longer struck with precision or power. His right arm had grown weak, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't muster the strength he once had. Hyun Su explained all of this to his friend, assuring him that he'd be fine on his own. He turned to leave, urging Jae-hoon to return the capsule before wasting 10 million won on a lost cause. He reminded him that he was working himself to the bone just to keep his father alive, with barely sustainable jobs that paid next to nothing. Jae-hoon insisted that the game could change everything, that it could fund his father's treatments and restore his life. He begged Hyun Su to at least try it once, promising he could quit whenever he wanted. But Hyun Su simply walked away in silence. Later, while at work, he couldn't stop thinking about what Jae-hoon had said. Then the sound of clanging metal reached his ears, stirring old memories and reigniting something he thought he had lost. The passion for forging. His curiosity began to burn again. That very night, he decided to give the game a chance. He approached the capsule. With a heart full of hesitation and longing, he climbed inside. Moments later, he found himself in the character creation space. When asked to choose a nickname, he entered his real name. The system activated automatically, scanning his body to construct an avatar based on his physical form. When asked if he wished to proceed, he confirmed. To his astonishment, the strength in his right arm had returned. And for the first time in a long while, a faint smile crossed his lips. Feeling indebted to Jae-hoon, he vowed to repay him one day. The system then spawned him into a random starting area, the Barden territory, the beginner zone. Inside a nearby smithy, a local blacksmith was working diligently on a sword. The man was taken aback when Hyun Su spoke up, forcing him to ask for clarification. Hyun Su repeated his statement, calmly insisting that the man was forging the blade incorrectly. He explained that while the blacksmith was clearly aiming to make a strong sword, his current method would only yield a flawed result. The man stood puzzled. Hyun Su quickly added that he only wanted to help, so the smith wouldn't end up producing worthless metal. He then offered the blacksmith his mallet, suggesting that he try forging the sword himself. In truth, Hyun Su's original plan had been to earn the blacksmith's trust so he could gain access to the forge, but this new arrangement seemed even better. When asked what he meant, Hyun Su proposed a deal he could keep whatever sword he successfully forged. In return, Hyun Su would demonstrate the correct process step by step. The blacksmith hesitated for a moment but eventually agreed. Still, he warned that if Hyun Su failed to produce a quality blade, there would be serious consequences. It had been 3 long years since Hyun Su last forged anything, but deep down he believed the fire within him hadn't gone out. He raised his hammer high and brought it down on the glowing metal. With each strike, the dormant instincts in his body began to awaken once more. For the first time in ages, Hyun Su felt alive again. Fueled by excitement and focus, he continued striking the metal relentlessly. Meanwhile, the blacksmith watched skeptically, certain that an outsider like him couldn't possibly succeed. But as he observed Hyun Su's movements more closely, he realized that this wasn't random effort. Those motions belonged to someone who had truly lived the craft. Soon, he noticed the faint smile on Hyun Su's face, a smile born of genuine joy and rediscovered passion. Still, the blacksmith tried to dismiss it, telling himself it didn't necessarily mean anything. Yet as time passed, doubt crept into his mind. Perhaps he had underestimated the young man. Hyun Su continued through the intricate stages, folding, reattaching, and refining the steel, precise process that purged impurities from the metal. The blacksmith was stunned. It was such a simple method, yet he had never considered it before. To his shock, the steel's quality rose dramatically from D grade to C grade before his very eyes. Man nearly lost his composure upon witnessing such rapid improvement. He had forged C grade steel before, but never had he seen such a transformation happen so swiftly. At last, the blacksmith realized that Hyun Su hadn't been bluffing. His talent was undeniably real. When he awoke from his deep concentration, dawn had already broken. Hyun Su was still standing at the forge, hammering away tirelessly, repeating the same technique through the entire night. From the look in his eyes, it was clear Hyun Su had no intention of stopping anytime soon. After hours of relentless forging, fatigue finally begins to weigh on Hyun Su, and just as he's about to drop the sword from sheer exhaustion, the blacksmith swiftly steps in and takes it from his hands. The man looks at him with newfound respect, asking what needs to be done next, ready to follow his every instruction. Hyun Su smiles faintly at the gesture and thanks the blacksmith for his willingness to help. The blacksmith then pulls out his worn notebook, eagerly jotting down every detail of Hyun Su's process. Unable to contain his amazement, the blacksmith admits aloud that Hyun Su is truly extraordinary. After all, no one has ever crafted a rare grade item in the beginner zone before. With this, Hyun Su has the potential to forge a truly unique sword. Yet, just when the blacksmith is brimming with excitement, Hyun Su surprises him again, calmly saying that there's no reason to celebrate just yet. The blacksmith blinks in confusion at those words, and Hyun Su points out that the sword's hilt is still incomplete, and its edge has yet to reach perfect sharpness. The seasoned blacksmith suddenly feels like a novice as Hyun Su explains that the blade hasn't even achieved its peak refinement. With genuine admiration, the blacksmith confesses that he's never met anyone like Hyun Su before. He reveals that he himself has been hammering metal since childhood. Since Hyun Su intends to keep one of the swords, the blacksmith suggests that they forge another one together. This time, he brings out an exceptionally rare forging material, mithril. The blacksmith explains that the mithril is a treasured heirloom passed down through his family for generations, prompting Hyun Su to ask why he would offer something so precious. The blacksmith admits that he has learned more from Hyun Su than he ever expected and wants to continue learning. He also confesses that he lacks the skill required to handle mithril properly, and he's eager to see what kind of masterpiece Hyun Su can create from it. He even feels an instinctive desire to protect the young man. Though he has never worked with mithril before, Hyun Su accepts the challenge, determined to see what will emerge from the forge. Since he now has new materials, Hyun Su decides to start from scratch. The blacksmith beams with excitement and asks if he can assist in crafting the sword. Grateful for the man's generosity, Hyun Su agrees to let him help. The blacksmith doesn't stop there. He even asks if he may call Hyun Su master. Hyun Su modestly declines, noting that the man is much older and deserves respect himself. Month passes, and at last, Hyun Su completes the sword he has poured his heart into. With that final strike, he clears the event, and the game's management center compiles every detail they can find about him. However, their investigation hits a wall when they learn that Hyun Su has refused any interviews or publicity, choosing to remain anonymous and avoid the spotlight. Even so, the team continues to monitor his progress closely. Later, his instructor, Relson, tells him to pick a sword for the next phase. Calm, but Hyun Su calmly replies that he already has his own. It's the very sword he forged himself, and it's the only one he intends to use. Apparently, Hyun Su had spent an entire month in the beginner zone just to refine his skills to perfection. As a result, he obtained a beginner-exclusive epic grade sword even though he remains at level 1. The other players suggest letting Hyun Su proceed on his own, just to see how far he can go. The instructor scoffs, mocking him for choosing the blacksmith class instead of something more combat-oriented. He explains that the hunting grounds are a perilous area crawling with monsters. Gradually, Relson's respect for Hyun Su fades, replaced with irritation and disdain. Just then, Hyun Su calmly asks Relson to put him through the toughest trial the hunting grounds have to offer, as his goal is to surpass even the greatest swordsmen who trained there before him. The request only fuels Relson's anger further, and in response he decides to teach the young man a lesson by throwing him into a deadly trial. He leads Hyun Su to a massive cage, one that houses goblins. Relson turns to him and asks if he's absolutely sure about taking the challenge. Hyun Su answers with an unwavering yes. The instructor snaps, warning that if he fails, he'll be banned from the hunting grounds for an entire week. But Hyun Su boldly taunts him, asking if the third stage is the highest difficulty available, because he intends to clear all stages in one go. The instructor almost loses control, fuming at Hyun Su's audacity. Inside the trial, a level 15 mad goblin awaits. Soon, Hyun Su finds himself face to face with a swarm of vicious goblins, yet he stays composed as they charge toward him, raising his sword with precision. He steadies his breathing, waiting for the most aggressive goblin to leap at him. With a single, decisive slash, Hyun Su cleaves it in half, fully confident that no weapon in this area can match the one he crafted. He swiftly dispatches one of the faster goblins, but another manages to land a critical strike right in his abdomen. Hyun Su grits his teeth and endures both the pain and the impact. Thanks to the month he spent forging, his endurance and stamina are exceptional, but his agility remains lacking due to lack of training. Before he can recover, the mad goblin charges at him, its roar echoing across the field. The creature's grotesque form looms closer, swinging its weapon wildly, intent on cutting Hyun Su down. However, to make matters worse, a status effect kicks in. Dizziness and blurred vision cloud his senses. Even the instructor can't help but be impressed that Hyun Su has survived this long, though he still believes the fight is as good as over. Now surrounded by two goblins, Hyun Su braces himself. Instead of panicking, he places all his trust in the weapon forged by his own hands. As the goblins leap to strike, he counters with flawless precision, slicing them both down in a single motion. Everyone watching, the developer, the management team, and even Relson stares in disbelief. Slowly, a smile forms on Relson's face as he realizes that Hyun Su possesses something no one else does. Assuming that Hyun Su must have learned swordsmanship somewhere, Relson asks about his training, but Hyun Su replies that a true blacksmith must always know how to wield the weapons he forges. Only then does Relson fully understand. Hyun Su isn't just a player, he's the embodiment of what a real blacksmith should be. The instructor swallows his pride and offers a sincere apology. His affinity toward Hyun Su instantly rises to the highest level. Then, with a gleam in his eyes, Relson proposes something outrageous. He asks if Hyun Su would like to become the Mad Lord, a legendary class. The management team nearly loses its composure upon hearing the offer. They can hardly believe that Hyun Su has just been presented with a class surpassing even the epic rank of the Mad Knight. It's an extraordinary opportunity, but once accepted, it can never be undone. The Mad Lord is a revered figure who commands hundreds of Mad Knights, and is regarded as the ultimate protector of the game world. Eagerly, Relson awaits Hyun Su's decision, hoping he'll accept such glory. But Hyun Su firmly declines, saying that he's a blacksmith, not a knight. Those observing behind the scenes can't help but smile at his conviction. Even Relson feels proud of his answer. Hyun Su stands his ground, refusing to abandon his path as a blacksmith. Impressed, the instructor hands him a letter of recommendation, instructing him to travel to the Lord's castle where someone of great importance awaits him. As a reward for conquering the fourth stage, Relson grants him a set of old, rusty armor once worn by the previous Mad Lord. Though it appears worthless, he believes that Hyun Su will be able to restore it to its former glory. With admiration in his voice, Relson cheers him on, telling him to keep pursuing impossible feats, because if anyone can achieve them, it's him. The management team breathes a sigh of relief, glad that Hyun Su avoided a path that would have limited his potential. They discuss the existence of a class known as the God of Blacksmiths, the highest possible tier for a craftsman, and they're thrilled that Hyun Su still walks the path toward it. After clearing the training grounds, Hyun Su is finally transported to the village, marking the true beginning of his adventure. Stepping into the next stage, he takes a deep breath, relieved that he's already adapting to the world of Aries. However, his in-game balance is quickly dropping, and he realizes he still has to pay for his father's hospital bills and daily expenses. Just then, Ji-hoon calls, asking whether he has cleared the training ground, explaining that work has kept him too busy to log in lately. Hyun Su confirms that he has, adding that he's just received a new quest and reached the territory's main village. Delighted, Ji-hoon advises him to visit the auction house. There, he'll find essential gear and items sold for gold, where 10 gold equals 10,000 won. Thanks to real money trading, many players now treat the game as their full-time job. Ji-hoon admits that this was the real reason he invited Hyun Su to join Aries. He's never seen swords as exceptional as the ones crafted by Hyun Su and his father. He's thrilled that Hyun Su is finally part of the game because together they can dominate the market with the best swords ever made. Touched, Hyun Su expresses his gratitude to his friend, sincerely thanking him for everything. Hyun Su settles down and starts devouring a hefty portion of food. He knows he'll need every bit of stamina for the long hours of crafting ahead, planning to forge countless items and sell them for gold. Once done, he goes for a jog, his renewed determination shining through every stride. Later, Hyun Su logs back into the game. He connects to the auction house where the system prompts him to name his personal shop before listing his creations. Without hesitation, he names it Hyun's Forge. In the blink of an eye, Hyun Su finds himself transported into the skies. He lands in a place known as the Forge of Power. The system notifies him that he's now capable of accessing the auction board anytime, from anywhere. Apart from his current weapon, the Lightbringer, his inventory only holds a single test sword he previously forged. Curious, he browses through the test sword listings and notices that each one is priced at no less than 70 gold coins. Remembering his friend's advice not to undervalue his work, he decides to set a fair price. Hyun Su places his sword up for sale and hopes for the best outcome. Soon after, notifications flood the player's screens. Someone has listed a new sword. The community is stunned to learn that Hyun Su, a player without an assigned weapon, managed to craft it himself. The sword's quality leaves everyone in awe, and bids begin to skyrocket. News of the extraordinary weapon reaches the Golden Shield Guild, who quickly discover that the sword includes an enhancement option. The guild's vice master remains skeptical, insisting that enhancement chances are naturally higher when using low-tier materials. He assumes that Hyun Su merely cut costs by using materials of the same grade. Still, he concedes that naming the sword the First Sword was a clever move on Hyun Su's part. Then it dawns on them. If they become the first buyers of Hyun Su's weapon, their guild's prestige will soar. Without a moment's delay, one of their members, Blam, proceeds to purchase the sword. Not long after, Hyun Su receives a notification stating his sword has been sold, leaving him completely stunned. He quickly checks his adventurer's log, only to find out that his creation was sold for over 1,000 gold coins. Hyun Su nearly loses his composure. 1,000 gold coins translate to nearly 1,000,001 in the real world. A wide, childlike smile spreads across his face as he realizes he may have just struck gold, literally. Curious, he checks who bought his item, discovering that it was none other than the Golden Shield Guild. Moments later, Hyun Su receives a message from Blam, introducing himself as a representative of the guild. Blam invites him to visit anytime, expressing their interest in his skills and offering him either an exclusive sales partnership or a chance to join their ranks. It turns out that the Golden Shield Guild is a massive blacksmithing organization boasting over 780,000 followers. Hyun Su recalls Ji-hun once saying that gaining followers is tougher than leveling up. After all, more followers mean more business opportunities. When Hyun Su checks his own Forge's follower count, he sees only 82 names. Yet he keeps receiving offers from several other guilds. In this world, blacksmiths hold far more value than they ever did in reality. After all, the entire game relies on skilled blacksmiths to produce weapons, armor, and essential items. Despite the tempting proposals, Hyun Su decides it's still too early to join any guild. He hasn't even showcased half of what he's capable of yet. Determined to advance further, he sets out toward the Lord's manor. One of the Lord's attendants explains that only a restorer from the capital possesses the skills needed for their current task. The Lord understands but refuses to leave his domain for such a distant journey. Surprisingly, the man speaking to him, Bell, is actually a rogue player disguised as a blacksmith. Bell offers to take the heirloom bow to the capital himself, promising to have it fully restored. But in doing so, he unintentionally reveals his plan, hinting that the bow might be repairable within the territory itself. Guards then announce that Hyun Su has arrived with a letter of recommendation from Relsun. Barnes, the Lord, is astonished to hear that Relsun personally endorsed someone. Intrigued, he asks Hyun Su to explain his experience and skills. Hyun Su calmly replies that he's only a level 1 player and currently classed as unemployed. Hearing this, Bell bursts out, calling Hyun Su worthless trash. He insists that restoration is a skill reserved for blacksmiths of level 80 and above. Bell yells at Hyun Su to stop interfering with matters he has already handled. Finally, Hyun Su speaks up, pointing out that Bell has misunderstood the type of bow entirely. He clarifies that it's a horn bow, not a recurve one. Bell freezes, utterly baffled by the correction. Hyun Su then addresses the Lord, saying he already understands the bow's backstory. The Lord, clearly irritated, warns him that his patience with outsiders lecturing about his heirloom is wearing thin. Yet Hyun Su calmly explains that while the bow may have been gifted by an outsider, it was undoubtedly crafted within this very territory. He recalls seeing a buffalo mural on the wall when he entered the hall. In his experience, buffalo horns are prized crafting materials. However, he noticed something odd. The bow's string wasn't made of cow sinew but whale tendon. Hyun Su then asks the Lord to explain this inconsistency. The Lord realizes the mural Hyun Su mentioned depicts a buffalo migration. It turns out that both buffalo and whale sinews are rare resources found in the swamps and ports of the region. Barnes remarks that the bow was forged from the finest materials their territory could provide, impressed that Hyun Su saw what even a level 100 blacksmith had missed. Bell, meanwhile, is losing his composure as the Lord begins showering Hyun Su with praise. The Lord admits he never wanted the heirloom to decay and had been searching for someone truly worthy to restore it. Moved by Hyun Su's insight and precision, the Lord entrusts him with the restoration task, offering a reward of 500 gold coins upon completion. He then dismisses Bell, telling him his services will be requested only when needed. Bell storms out of the room, seething with rage. Once Bell is gone, Barnes turns to Hyun Su and asks what's required for the restoration. Hyun Su lists the materials: buffalo horns, whale sinew, oak, mulberry bamboo, and the right tools. Memories of his late father teaching him to craft bows resurface vividly. His synchronization rate inside the capsule even spikes to 99.9%. Feeling thankful, Hyun Su smiles, realizing he can now fully apply the skills passed down by his father. Barnes joins him, offering to help with the work himself. Before long, an entire day slips by as they labor side by side. Barnes begins to feel his arm grow weak. Hyun Su, however, remains lively and focused, his energy unwavering as he continues shaping the bow. When Barnes suggests taking a break, Hyun Su reminds him there's no time to rest. He gently insists that Barnes began this effort to personally restore his family's heirloom. Barnes agrees, confessing that the bow is the last memento of his father. He observes that Hyun Su genuinely enjoys working on it. Hyun Su nods, admitting that crafting bows holds precious memories for him too. They keep working tirelessly, and more than 20 days pass before they finally near completion. At last, the final day arrives. Together, they succeed in fully restoring the marksman's horn bow. The system reveals the weapon's stunning stats, now even more refined than its original state. In essence, it's as though the mysterious outsider has once again bestowed a legendary bow upon the Lord's lineage. They carry the weapon outside, and Hyun Su encourages Barnes to test it, asking if it feels just as he remembers. Barnes releases the arrow, and the bow emits a powerful aura that obliterates the target completely. With a bright smile, Barnes declares that it feels even greater than before. Thus, Hyun Su completes the bow restoration quest with a result surpassing 100%, earning maximum favor with Barnes. Breathing a deep sigh of relief, Hyun Su is overjoyed by the flawless outcome. Barnes thanks him sincerely, saying he can finally fulfill his duties again. He admits that the promised 500 gold seems too meager, and increases the reward to 2,000 gold coins, also granting Hyun Su unrestricted access to his forge. Hyun Su is completely astounded, realizing the fortune he's just earned even in real-world terms. As he celebrates, Barnes turns to him and asks if he'd like to learn swordsmanship. He explains that before becoming Lord, he once lived as a swordsman. Barnes praises Hyun Su as a gifted blacksmith, but he also senses a hidden potential within him. For that reason, Barnes offers to teach him the fundamentals of swordsmanship. He warns that the training will be as rigorous as the forging sessions they endured together. A month later, Hyun Su completes crafting a personal weapon, a gakgun. Along with it, he also restores the rusted armor once worn by the Mad Monarch. Alongside Barnes, Hyun Su has been undergoing relentless, almost insane levels of training. Day after day, he pushes himself to the brink under Barnes' guidance. Eventually, he manages to clear the prime sword art training. After witnessing his progress, Barnes asks if he's finally ready to depart. Hyun Su nods with gratitude, thanking Barnes for helping him complete all his preparations. When Barnes asks about his next goal, Hyun Su reveals that he intends to change jobs. Now, he stands tall, clad in the restored shining Mad Lord's armor. Barnes reassures him that he's always welcome to return if he ever needs assistance. Hyun Su takes pride in the equipment he forged for himself, knowing it compensates for his current low stats. To support his living expenses, he crafts several rare-grade bows and lists them for sale on the auction house. This time, he names the weapon Hyun's second bow. He wonders just how much it will sell for, considering it's forged from extremely rare materials that may never appear again. Before long, Rune, the guildmaster of the Golden Shield Guild, learns about the bow. There's an old saying that the game often grants players a title, class, or skill that truly suits them. Their actions, guided by passion or talent, can even stir the game's AI itself. Rune begins to suspect that Hyun Su might be a legendary-level blacksmith, on par with a top-ranked craftsman known as Smith. He's stunned by how much people are willing to pay for a single bow. After finalizing the sales, Hyun Su prepares himself to journey into the holy sanctuary of all blacksmiths, the Tower of Blacksmiths. Soon, he arrives before the majestic tower. Hyun Su is completely captivated by its intricate, awe-inspiring design. At the grand entrance, he finds a massive sealed lock upon the door and wonders how he's supposed to enter. The system informs him that the seal can only be broken by striking it with a sword forged within a magical forge. Goal. Before doing so, Hyun Su examines the lot closely and realizes that it's made of stone. Suddenly, he's teleported into the magical forge itself. There, he learns that crafting time inside this forge is greatly reduced compared to a normal smithy. However, any sword crafted within can only be used for the test, and nothing beyond it. Meanwhile, the tower's master, Dang, believes that no one truly loves blacksmithing for its own sake anymore. Over time, Dang has grown disillusioned, granting blacksmith titles to anyone who desires them. To him, most seekers only crave the prestige and benefits that come with the title. He's utterly convinced that no one will ever be able to cut through the sealing stone. Meanwhile, Hyun Su decides on what to forge, a Damascus sword, an advanced weapon only the highest tier blacksmiths can craft. Since all the materials are conveniently available, he's determined to give it his all. He recalls his father once saying that a sword capable of cutting another sword truly embodies perfection, and he remembers being taught how to achieve that very feat. Confident in himself, Hyun Su believes he can clear this challenge too. He feels lucky that every material he needs is right within his reach. Even the forging duration has been shortened, allowing him to work freely. With a bright smile, Hyun Su savors the chance to craft a blade purely by his own hand, a feeling he hasn't experienced in ages. Suddenly, the entire tower trembles with a strange vibration, jolting him awake. He's stunned to realize that the shaking is caused by someone hammering with incredible force. Dang refuses to believe it until he peers through the window and rushes toward the entrance just as Hyun Su steps inside. In that instant, Dang declares that the god of blacksmiths himself must have descended. Nervously, Hyun Su asks if he passed the trial. Dang explains that the test was designed to measure skill through the enchanted stone, but Hyun Su sliced the stone completely in half, leaving them with nothing to measure. Hearing this, Hyun Su assumes he'll have to undergo a retest. Instead, Dang leads him to a glowing magic circle, revealing it to be a summoning circle. Dang then picks up a hammer and presents it to Hyun Su, declaring it as his rightful tool. Though puzzled, Hyun Su accepts the hammer. Without warning, Dang pushes him straight into the summoning circle. In an instant, Hyun Su finds himself transported to a strange battlefield, where the quest details finally appear before his eyes. The system states that he must subjugate an invading orc army, and he looks up to see a massive horde of orcs charging toward him. Hyun Su nearly loses it, wondering how this could possibly be a blacksmith's test. The nearby soldiers believe he's a reinforcement sent by Master Dang. The system adds that he must earn 70 contribution points among 50 warriors to pass the trial. Hans, the leader of the subjugation unit, greets Hyun Su warmly and explains that the orc invasions have grown increasingly severe. He reveals that many of their weapons have broken during battle and requests Hyun Su's help repairing them. Hyun Su quickly clarifies that he hasn't officially changed his class to blacksmith yet, meaning he can't use blacksmithing skills at the moment. Hans points to the hammer in Hyun Su's hand, and he nervously explains that he received it during his advancement test. Hyun Su adds that he was only sent here as part of an additional trial. Hans's face immediately hardens, disappointed that they were sent someone who seems to need basic instruction instead of an actual fighter. He instructs Hyun Su to remain at the watchtower, where it's safe until the rest of them return from battle. Just then, an axe comes flying straight toward Hans. Without hesitation, Hyun Su rushes forward and slices the weapon cleanly out of the air. Hans stares in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. Hyun Su admits that he lacks combat experience but asks for permission to join the fight regardless. He's confident that if he battles these orcs the same way he fought goblins, he'll manage just fine. Hans agrees and assigns him to Ben's squad, instructing Ben to guide his movements during the fight. Once the battle begins, Hyun Su realizes how vastly different these orcs are from goblins. Still, he steps forward with fierce determination, vowing not to fall. The first orc charges at him, and loses its head before it can even blink. Defeating just one orc earns Hyun Su 86 experience points. He grins, knowing that the month spent training with Barnes has paid off. When he sees Ben about to be overwhelmed by another orc, he swiftly switches from sword to bow. Hyun Su draws an arrow and fires with pinpoint precision. The arrow streaks through the air before the orc even senses it coming. It pierces straight through, launching the creature backward under tremendous force. Hyun Su doesn't stop there. He releases another shot, and the arrow bursts through another orc's skull. Instantly, he levels up again. Ben is more astonished by the fact that Hyun Su took down such a massive orc with a single arrow. Hans yells at Ben to retreat from Hyun Su's area, warning that the orcs are now converging on his position. Realizing Hyun Su is in danger because of him, Ben panics. But before he can act, Hyun Su switches back from his bow to his Lightbringer sword. He activates the flurry skill, unleashing a storm of strikes that annihilates every enemy within a 10-meter radius. His swordsmanship flows flawlessly in perfect rhythm. The carnage earns him another level up and raises his contribution rate to 19%. Witnessing this, Hans grows confident that victory is within reach. As long as Hyun Su continues to fight alongside them, Hans rallies his men, shouting that they finally have a real chance to defeat the orc unit. a feat they had never achieved before. As the battle intensifies, the squad's morale surges. Hyun Su keeps pushing forward, his contribution reaching 20%. Suddenly, a level 51 orc warrior appears before them. Hans immediately halts his men, realizing how dangerous the situation has become. But it's too late. Their formation is surrounded by orcs. Ben tries to boost everyone's spirits, shouting that they can still win. From the hillside, Hans watches as his soldiers charge into the enemy ranks. He decides to cover their assault from a distance with his bow. He releases an arrow aimed right at the orc warrior's head, but the shot deflects harmlessly off the creature's helmet. Witnessing the situation unfold, the team quickly realizes that retreating might be their only option to come up with a new strategy. Yet, in a bold and reckless decision, Hans charges forward to strike the orc warrior head-on. The result is disastrous. He ends up losing his dominant hand in the clash. Now defenseless, Hans finds himself completely at the mercy of the raging orc. Hyun Su, seeing this from behind, rushes in while shouting Hans's name, desperately hoping that his comrade survives. Though severely injured, Hans is pulled to safety by the soldiers surrounding him. Hyun Su gives everything he has, but no matter how hard he tries, his attacks fail to penetrate the orc warrior's defenses. Acting fast, he orders the soldiers to tighten their formation and pull back toward the forest to secure a defensive position. He reassures them that he will follow soon after, ensuring their safe withdrawal. Following his command, the soldiers dash into the forest for cover. However, Ben stays behind, warning Hyun Su that moving through the dense forest will slow everyone down and that this tactic will only buy them a few minutes. Hyun Su then asks Ben if he and the troops can hold their ground for just 5 minutes. Ben nods with determination, assuring him that they can endure for that short span of time. Without hesitation, Hyun Su equips Dang's hammer, an epic tier artifact known for drastically reducing crafting time, as Ben and the remaining soldiers continue their fierce battle. Locked in combat with the orcs, Hyun Su begins preparing something crucial in the background, even though exhaustion weighs on them from the prolonged fight. Ben and his men grit their teeth, determined to hold on until Hyun Su is ready. Bloodied and battered, Ben keeps pushing forward, reminding himself that they only need to last 5 minutes. Suddenly, Ben finds himself standing before the fearsome orc warrior. Just as the orc raises his weapon to strike the killing blow, a powerful projectile hurtles through the air toward it. The impact is devastating. Hyun Su's shot tears through the orc's armor, piercing its body cleanly. Blood splatters everywhere, leaving Ben momentarily stunned by what just happened. He turns toward the source and spots Hyun Su in the distance, his aura radiating with overwhelming power. Hyun Su swiftly fires another barrage of deadly projectiles at the orc warrior. And Ben watches in absolute disbelief at the display of strength before his eyes. On closer look, he notices that Hyun Su has equipped a new weapon strapped to his back. It's the Swift Arrow, a unique item boasting 70% penetration and 60% increased arrow speed. Short but incredibly fast, its shots are powerful enough to crush solid stone. Hyun Su wields it effectively using a custom-made bamboo pipe of his own design. Relentlessly, he continues his assault without pause. When the soldiers notice the orc warrior rising again to retaliate, they steel themselves and charge forward, determined to buy Hyun Su the time he needs. With calm precision, Hyun Su aims his bow, trusting that his arrow's force rivals that of a musket's shot. His next strike flies straight through the air, slicing through the orc warrior's neck and ending its life in one clean motion. System notification flashes. Hyun Su has slain the orc warrior. Immediately afterward, more notifications flood in, showing multiple level ups. As a reward for killing an orc warrior, he earns the title Orc Slayer, which boosts his attack power against orcs by 15%. Additionally, all orcs will now instinctively fear his presence. Another nearby orc senses the overwhelming aura that just annihilated its comrade. Terrified, it drops its weapon and flees. Hyun Su refuses to let it escape, sprinting after it with deadly intent. He intercepts the fleeing creature. His expression turns fierce and demonic, striking fear into the orc's heart. Hyun Su releases one final arrow straight at the trembling foe. The projectile severs the orc's head cleanly from its shoulders. When the dust settles, Hyun Su stands tall amidst a pile of fallen orc corpses. He has successfully completed the orc subjugation quest, his contribution rate soaring to an incredible 92%. A triumphant roar erupts from the soldiers as they cheer for Hyun Su's victory. The system informs him that the subjugation unit now fully trusts his leadership. He's granted a hidden title as a battlefield commander, receiving a special reward 10 additional charisma points. Ben then helps the injured Hans up and carries him to Hyun Su's side. With tears of gratitude, Hans thanks Hyun Su deeply, admitting he never thought he would live to see the orcs defeated. Hans strikes his chest with his remaining arm as a gesture of respect. The other soldiers follow his example in unison. Hyun Su returns the salute, placing his hand over his chest in gratitude. He exhales deeply, gazing toward the setting sun as he prepares to finally head back to the blacksmith's tower. Meanwhile, at the Blacksmith Council, headed by Dang, they had been searching for a worthy blacksmith to wield a legendary sword in their possession. They refuse to hand it to just anyone, as most blacksmiths nowadays value wealth over true craftsmanship. Yet they continue to believe in the ancient prophecy that a successor to the blacksmith god will appear to restore glory to their lineage. Convinced that Hyun Su is the one, Dang summons the other blacksmith lords to the central tower. Coulson, lord of the Bowsmith Tower, strongly opposes Dang's choice to entrust the sword to an outsider. Dang counters, explaining that Hyun Su has already met all the conditions required to claim the blade. Moreover, despite not yet selecting a formal profession, Hyun Su led soldiers into battle and annihilated the orc warriors using his own blacksmith skills. Hearing this, the other lords are astonished that someone without a class could accomplish such a feat. Dang reminds them that the prophecy clearly states the successor of the blacksmith god will surpass all others. At that moment, a butler enters and informs Dang that Hyun Su has arrived at the hall. Dang orders the guards to bring him in immediately. When Hyun Su steps inside, Dang declares that he has passed the trials, granting him access to the blacksmith sanctuary. Furthermore, he has earned the right to challenge the legendary sword of prophecy left behind by the blacksmith god himself. Dang tells him that once he grasps the sword, the truth will be revealed and a grand reward will follow. Hyun Su quietly wonders if that reward might be a legendary class, given that he recently completed an SS rank quest. Dang praises him for crafting the swift arrows in such a desperate situation. Yet he admits he's not completely satisfied, calling them little more than clever imitations. Another lord mutters that Hyun Su was simply lucky. Without that epic bow, he would have surely failed. Most of the lords remain skeptical, urging Hyun Su to draw the sword so they can see if he's truly genuine. These individuals are not ordinary NPCs. Each of them holds titles and levels that are nothing short of extraordinary. For instance, Coulson himself is a master blacksmith who has reached level 365. Hyun Su acknowledges their immense skill, yet he doesn't see himself as inferior to them. He quietly wonders what would happen if they competed without relying on their titles. As Hyun Su approaches the sword, it suddenly releases an immense wave of energy. The overwhelming aura stuns everyone in the chamber. Then, in an instant, the sword's light surges forward and merges into Hyun Su's body. Unaware of what just happened, Hyun Su looks around in confusion, wondering where the sword vanished to. Dang bursts into joyous laughter, proclaiming that the prophecy has finally been fulfilled. He admits that for years, they performed rituals and traditions without ever taking the right step. Furious, Coulson refuses to accept that Hyun Su could truly be the chosen successor. Then, without delay, the system officially announces Hyun Su's promotion. He has become the god of blacksmiths. Despite being only level 10, he now bears a divine class and the first of its kind. Dang stands proudly behind him, overjoyed that Hyun Su succeeded beyond all expectations. The new title allows him to ignore material limitations during crafting, while his artifact-making proficiency scales with the rarity of materials he uses. Simply put, Hyun Su is destined to surpass every blacksmith in existence. The system informs him that the sword trial will commence once he reaches level 100. The remaining lords begin to reluctantly accept the divine judgment, but Coulson erupts in fury, shouting that he will not acknowledge it. He declares that a true god of blacksmiths cannot be chosen solely by a sword's will. Instead, he insists that only one recognized by all the tower lords should be deemed the rightful successor. Citing that very clause of the prophecy, Coulson exploits the loophole. He challenges Hyun Su to a blacksmith's duel. Coulson vows that if Hyun Su can defeat him, he will acknowledge him as the legitimate successor. But if he loses, Hyun Su must surrender the divine title without protest. Hearing this, Dang becomes deeply worried, urging the others to restrain Coulson before things escalate. Yet none of the lords move to stop him. They all watch in silence as the duel of fate begins. Coulson wears a confident grin, convinced that Hyun Su will lose his nerve and back out of the duel. Yet what he doesn't know is that Hyun Su has secretly been hoping for this very challenge. Without an ounce of hesitation, Hyun Su accepts, declaring that a true blacksmith's resolve is proven not in words but in the forge. Instantly, the system registers the new quest, Hyun Su versus Coulson, a duel between blacksmiths. Coulson begins explaining that a blacksmith's duel is unlike a knight's. In this kind of battle, victory is determined by the very weapons they craft, the creations into which they pour their hearts and souls. He reveals that a high-grade smithy has already been prepared inside the hall, and mocks that since Hyun Su now holds the title of God of Blacksmiths, forging a sword within a single day should be child's play. With a sneer, Coulson laughs, saying Hyun Su will only succeed if he truly is the divine blacksmith he claims to be. With the challenge set, Coulson turns to leave, promising to meet him again the next day. Once Coulson departs, Dang admits his concern, worried that Hyun Su accepted the duel without a moment's thought. Hyun Su is well aware that Coulson, as a tower master, possesses formidable and specialized blacksmithing skills. However, his recent ascension to the god class has closed much of the gap between them. From this point forward, the outcome will depend solely on their craftsmanship. This confidence stems from the new divine ability he obtained, God's custom-made creation. The ability allows him to forge any artifact he can imagine and imbue it with effects of his choosing. The stronger the desired effect, the harder it is to create, but the resulting item manifests those effects at full potency, determined entirely by the quality of his technique. Meanwhile, Coulson returns to his own smithy, already preparing to forge his masterpiece. He recalls that his blacksmithing talent was inherited from his father, a renowned craftsman in his own right. Later, he was guided by a true master, one who refined his skills to perfection. It was that experience that made him abandon sword forging and rise to the position of tower master for the blacksmiths. Though he accepted his path, he still carries bitterness in his heart. He refuses to acknowledge that someone of unknown origins could ever be chosen to stand above him. Fueled by anger and pride, Coulson hammers away with fierce determination, each strike filled with defiance. At the same time, Hyun Su begins crafting his own sword in silence. Everyone knows that the process of imbuing an artifact with abilities requires absolute focus and mastery. Dang concludes that if Hyun Su hopes to win, he must forge a weapon of overwhelming strength and endurance. Still, Dang can't help but wonder what Hyun Su is truly thinking as he forges his blade. When dawn breaks, the long-awaited duel begins. Both Coulson and Hyun Su stand inside the Grand Hall, surrounded by the Tower Lords who have gathered as witnesses. Coulson laughs mockingly, claiming that Hyun Su must have stayed up all night crafting, otherwise he would have run away. He smirks, daring Hyun Su to prove himself worthy of the title of a god's successor. Hyun Su remains silent, calm, and composed amid Coulson's arrogance. With a flourish, Coulson unsheathes his weapon. He proudly introduces it as the Black Knight. It's a unique grade sword boasting an incredible 12,000 durability points and a passive skill known as Weapon Breaker. Dang isn't surprised. He knows full well that Coulson's skill is nothing to underestimate. In fact, he's impressed that Coulson managed to forge such a flawless, high-grade weapon in just one night. Coulson grins wickedly, certain that everyone present can see the brilliance of his craft, a weapon infused with his family's ancestral forging secrets. Growing tired of Coulson's boasting, Hyun Su finally reveals his own sword. Coulson nearly loses his composure as Hyun Su begins to draw his weapon. Even Dang watches intently, holding his breath in anticipation. But when Hyun Su's sword is finally revealed, disappointment ripples through the whole. It appears simple, unremarkable, and plain. The other lords whisper, believing Coulson will humiliate him easily. With a smirk, Coulson lunges first, determined to end the duel in one strike. Hyun Su remains steady, holding his ground and preparing to counter. The two swords collide with a thunderous crash, and to everyone's astonishment, one of them snaps in half. Gasps echo throughout the chamber as the lords realize whose weapon was destroyed. It's Coulson's sword that lies broken on the ground. Coulson stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend what just happened. Trembling, he demands to know how Hyun Su managed to do it. Hyun Su calmly explains that a sword's true value isn't determined by its appearance or grade alone. His weapon carries an active skill that prevents it from breaking unless its durability reaches 0, and from their clash, it only lost a mere 100 durability points. Hearing this, Coulson recalls his late father's words, that one day, the god of blacksmiths would appear and completely redefine their understanding of creation itself. He remembers how, as a child, he longed to meet that divine craftsman his father spoke of with such reverence. Hyun Su knew that simply breaking Coulson's sword wouldn't be enough to convince the tower masters of his worth. That's why he set out to craft a weapon designed specifically to cut through other blades, a feat even Dang doubted was possible. Hyun Su admitted it wouldn't be easy, but said that true craftsmanship is born from passion, skill, and relentless effort. Dang finally understands that. Hyun Su is a man who challenges reason itself with unshakable conviction. Shattered and humbled, Coulson finally lowers his pride and acknowledges Hyun Su's supremacy. Hyun Su smiles faintly, telling him that nothing in this world is impossible. Tears well up in Coulson's eyes as he falls to his knees and pledges his loyalty to Hyun Su. With that, Hyun Su officially clears the blacksmith duel quest. As his reward, he receives 500 gold coins. The prize lifts his spirits, filling him with quiet satisfaction. Coulson confesses that he was never able to complete his family's secret bow blueprint, but insists it's only right to entrust it to someone destined for greatness. Dang assures Hyun Su that the lords will devote themselves to the new era he brings. With their full support, they urge him to rise and stand at the very pinnacle of power. After logging out of the game, Hyun Su is greeted by Ji-hoon, who's astonished at how far he has come. Hyun Su feels that all his grueling effort at the forge is finally beginning to pay off. Ji-hoon curiously asks what perks come with being a god class. Hyun Su answers that its effects aren't immediately visible but will show in time. He adds that he plans to visit the hospital tomorrow to pay his father's medical bills, though they've increased by another 10 million won. Ji-hoon reveals he researched the new medicine Hyun Su wanted for his father. It costs 20 million won and isn't covered by insurance. He further warns that even with Hyun Su's new class, the cost of crafting and treatment might still exceed what he can handle, since his stamina limits how many artifacts he can produce. Ji-hoon advises him to keep leveling up and building fame. After all, growth as a god class is essential to survival. He suggests befriending powerful and well-known players, as such connections can lead to better rewards and rarer materials. Ji-hoon encourages him to use these opportunities as stepping stones to create legendary artifacts. To assist him further, Ji-hoon promises he already has a plan in motion. Later, in the game's group chat, players begin discussing a player named Lord who has just been promoted to legendary class. The chat erupts in shock. It turns out Lord achieved this by defeating none other than Barad, the Sword King. Though he only managed to land a single blow, it was something no one had ever accomplished before. Players everywhere are left wondering how he pulled it off. The following day, Hyun Su finds himself worrying again about his father's mounting hospital expenses. They're simply overwhelming. Despite all the money he's earned in the game, it's still not enough, leaving him anxious about how to gather the funds. Just then, a system notification appears. His first custom-made sword has sold for 53,000 gold coins, purchased by none other than Lord. Overjoyed by the timing, Hyun Su rushes to the hospital to tell the staff that he can finally pay his father's bills, which were due to expire that very day. Lord, on the other hand, considers the 50 million won he paid a fair price, given the sword's power. He sends Hyun Su a message. Barad, the king of Goyard, wishes to meet him personally and have a sword crafted. Hyun Su is stunned by the offer, but Lord insists that he take it seriously. His next goal is meet Barad and uncover the lost forge. Later, Hyun Su attempts to contact Barad but is met with silence. He learns that his level is too low to request an audience with the king. To his shock, he's told that he must reach at least level 200 before Barad will meet him. Frustrated, Hyun Su asks if there's any other possible route. He's informed of the Goyard Martial Arts Tournament, an annual event in the kingdom. Only players between level 50 and 60 can participate, offering him a chance to get noticed. Barad himself attends every year, using the tournament to scout exceptional warriors, and this, perhaps, will be Hyun Su's opportunity to stand before the king. Ji-hoon informs Hyun Su that the tournament is about to begin, and the victor will personally receive their prize money from Barad. Soon after, Dang instructs Hyun Su to head toward the castle territory. That area lies between Prime and Goyard, a borderland where clashes with the undead occur constantly. Dang is certain that Hyun Su's abilities will be essential there. He also adds that this territory is the quickest route for anyone aiming to level up. With unwavering determination burning in his eyes, Hyun Su resolves to complete the quest no matter the difficulty. Before long, he arrives at castle territory. There, he encounters Lander, a level 26 warrior who explains that they've been waiting for reinforcements since the number of invading undead has been rapidly increasing. Hyun Su, taken aback, asks if there's any specific reason behind the sudden surge. Lander explains that the undead invasions usually remain manageable. Whenever the holy bell of Ramas tolls across the territory, they had been relying on the bell to repel the undead until very recently. Hearing that, Hyun Su quickly recognizes it as a type of event system. He then asks whether the bell can be repaired. At that moment, it dawns on Lander that Hyun Su must have come from Dang. Hyun Su confirms this, stating that he was sent by Dang, the blacksmith from the sword tower. On hearing this, Cao respectfully greets Hyun Su, acknowledging his connection to the renowned Dang. When Cao learns of Hyun Su's intention to repair the bell of Ramas, he immediately warns him that the bell is considered beyond repair. Hyun Su is stunned, and Cal elaborates that numerous attempts have been made to restore it, yet none have ever succeeded. Everyone who has tried eventually reached the same conclusion. The bell is an irreparable relic. Still, one individual remains in the castle, persistently searching for a solution. Despite her relentless efforts, Cal deems it futile. The smith is already level 290, yet even she couldn't mend it. Cole turns to Hyun Su and asks about his current level. Hyun Su admits that he's only level 13, shocking both the commander and his subordinate. Cal then advises him, in a composed tone, to seek help from someone closer to his level. Their situation is dire, the territory teeters on the edge of collapse, and every second counts. Suddenly, a soldier dashes in, shouting that the undead are attacking the eastern wall. A massive swarm of ghouls is pouring into the area. Cal instantly orders his troops to focus on defending the main gate at all costs. As he prepares to leave, he calls Lander to accompany him. The situation mirrors their previous battle against the orcs. Soon, the undead begin scaling the walls in overwhelming numbers. Hyun Su joins the fray, drawing his bow and firing at the advancing undead. Lander warns him that these creatures are difficult to kill without weapons imbued with holy energy. Each must be struck repeatedly in the same spot to be slain. Yet Hyun Su silences that doubt in an instant by cleanly shooting off a ghoul's head with a single arrow. Lander stares in disbelief, noting that Hyun Su's weapon holds no trace of holy power. Ignoring everything else, Hyun Su keeps unleashing arrows at the relentless undead horde. His attacks inflict such heavy damage that the enemy formation begins to crumble. Hyun Su drives them back, giving the soldiers a much-needed breather. The soldiers cheer loudly for him, their morale skyrocketing. Even Lander grins and boldly declares that the undead are doomed. Hyun Su exhales in relief, realizing the fight is turning in their favor more smoothly than he expected. But then, the system issues him a new quest to defeat a terrifying monster. The creature towering before them is a ghoul so massive its height dwarfs the castle walls. The soldiers scream in terror, believing only Cal might be able to save them. And Lander glances at the walls and sees they are seconds away from collapsing. Just then, Hyun Su announces that he'll draw the monster's attention. Lander, alarmed, asks how he intends to do that. Before he can stop him, Hyun Su leaps off the wall, charging straight at the colossal ghoul. Lander yells for him to stop, warning that it's suicide to face it alone. But Hyun Su doesn't hesitate. There's no stopping him now. He switches from his bow to his sword. Jumping down from the battlements to confront the towering ghoul head-on, Hyun Su sprints toward the monster, successfully catching its attention. The ghoul roars and gives chase, proving that Hyun Su's plan to lure it away is working perfectly. Yet he soon realizes how dangerous his situation has become. The monster's speed forces him to fight desperately just to stay alive. The ghoul's relentless pursuit shows no sign of letting up. Hyun Su quickly changes weapons once again. As soon as the ghoul looms directly above him, he releases an arrow that flies at lightning speed and strikes the creature's head. The ghoul lets out a furious roar, but when it looks down at Hyun Su, he realizes that even his strongest shot failed to harm it. The ghoul retaliates with a savage kick before he can react. The single blow reduces his health to under 10%. As his body hits the ground, the system warns him that he'll be logged out automatically once his HP reaches 0. Hyun Su curses under his breath, unwilling to go down in such a humiliating way. He forces himself back up, refusing to accept a forced exit from the game. He knows that if he dies here, he'll lose his chance to compete in the Goyard martial arts tournament. And if that happens, his father's hospital bills, his own treatment, and his dream of reclaiming the blacksmith shop will all be lost. Hyun Su burns with determination to change his fate. That's why he started this game to begin with. For that reason alone, surrender is not an option. He seizes his bow and shoots another round straight into the ghoul's leg. The arrow pierces deep, causing the creature to howl in agony. Enraged, the ghoul turns and storms toward him. Meanwhile, Hyun Su's health dips below 3%. Even then, he refuses to yield. He pulls his bowstring back to its limit, and just as he's about to release the shot, the string snaps apart. Hyun Su is left completely vulnerable before the monster. In the next moment, he finds himself drifting in a strange void, wondering if this is the end. Yet even there, Hyun Su refuses to give up. He reaches upward as though trying to grasp something that could pull him back. Then, the system notifies him that he's met a special condition for acquiring a new skill. It triggers when a god-tier blacksmith's health drops below 5%, but their willpower to achieve remains unbroken. The skill, God's Emergency Crafting, lets him instantly forge a weapon within 20 seconds, usable for only 30. Hyun Su realizes this is the miracle he'd been praying for. His timer is already ticking down. Without hesitation, he begins the desperate crafting process. He strikes the steel with furious intensity. Just before the time expires, Hyun Su finishes creating his ideal weapon. The next moment, he's transported back into the heat of battle. He swings the newly forged weapon with full strength at the monstrous ghoul. The blade cleaves cleanly through the creature's body in a single stroke. Hyun Su drops to his knees after the devastating blow as the ghoul collapses to the ground with a thunderous crash. His face brightens with relief and disbelief. He's actually done it. The system confirms his victory, rewarding him with a massive surge of experience points. Lander rushes toward him, frantically calling his name. The following morning, Hyun Su awakens. He asks the nearby soldiers how long he'd been unconscious and expresses concern about the ghoul, but before he can finish, he hears the soldiers shouting and cheering his name. They're calling him a hero. But Hyun Su is still bewildered until Cal arrives and explains that everyone survived thanks to his efforts. Cal then asks how Hyun Su managed to pull it off, but Hyun Su struggles to find words to explain. He knows that even if he tried to tell the truth, no one would believe that he crafted a divine weapon in the middle of an undead siege. Cal insists, however, that there's no need for humility. Hyun Su fully deserves every ounce of admiration and praise. In truth, ghouls are particularly weak to holy power, much like vengeful spirits. That's why Hyun Su forged the Four-Seal Sword, a weapon capable of purging evil. This technique was something his father had once taught him when he was just a boy. Hyun Su feels relief that everything turned out well. He's impressed by the divine crafting skill he triggered, though it disappoints him that it can only be used once. Al then reminds him that it's time to receive his well-earned reward. As usual, Hyun Su is taken aback but joyfully accepts it with gratitude. Cal bows his head, apologizing for how he initially treated him. Hyun Su and the surrounding soldiers are stunned to see their commander bow before him. Hyun Su quickly tells Cal there's no need to apologize. Instead, he thanks him sincerely for recognizing his efforts. The two clasp hands, and the watching soldiers are moved to tears. Because of this exchange, Cal's affinity with Hyun Su reaches its highest level. He then makes a heartfelt plea. He begs Hyun Su to repair the bell of Ramas. Hyun Su regretfully explains that he'd love to help, but he must hurry to the Goyard Kingdom. That's when Cal reveals something that shocks him. The lord of this land possesses a legendary mineral, one that could be given to Hyun Su if it helps repair the bell. This instantly sparks Hyun Su's interest. Cal guides him to where the shattered fragments of the bell are kept. Hyun Su is stunned to see that the bell is not just damaged, it's utterly destroyed. Not a single piece remains intact. Cal grins at him like an eager pup, asking if he truly thinks he can restore it. Hyun Su nervously agrees, though deep inside, doubt gnaws at him. At that very moment, a woman appears behind them. She coldly declares that the bell can't be repaired, explaining that even she, despite being level 290, couldn't manage it. The woman steps closer, her sharp gaze fixed on him, and accuses Hyun Su of being a fraud. The scene shifts. Some time ago, the master of the Golden Shield Guild, Rune, had been shocked when this same woman, Belle, abruptly announced her resignation. He asked why she would abandon everything she'd built. Belle calmly replied that she was simply tired. Rune tried desperately to convince her to stay, suggesting that if she could recruit the blacksmith named Hyun, their fortunes might change. But she snapped back in anger, asking how they could justify offering 500 million a year to some random player. Rune argued that Hyun, the blacksmith in question, once sold his very first sword for 50 million won, and that hiring him could elevate their guild overnight. Belle countered by reminding him that every blacksmith they'd brought in so far had failed. One external hire, one who ran off with the deposit, and another who hit the jackpot and disappeared, leaving behind nothing but chaos. Exhausted, Belle demanded that he stop defending those choices, saying she didn't want to clean up their mistakes anymore, and asked Rune not to stop her. With a heavy heart, Rune agreed. Yet he assured her that if she ever wished to return, her place would always remain open. Later, back at castle territory, Belle arrived to find the village in complete ruin. Shock filled her eyes. She couldn't understand how such devastation had befallen this place. This was the same village that had made her realize these inhabitants weren't just NPCs, but living beings with genuine hearts. She believed that if the Bell of Ramas could be repaired, perhaps they could prevent further destruction. And so, she decided to examine the bell once more. Returning to the present, Belle repeats her accusation, calling Hyun Su a fraud. Hyun Su frowns in confusion, asking what right she has to judge him. She proudly replies that she's a blacksmith of far higher rank. Captain Cal steps between them, urging both to calm down. He introduces Belle as the high-ranking blacksmith he mentioned earlier, and introduces Hyun Su as the hero who destroyed the ghouls. Belle scolds Hyun Su, accusing him of exploiting the castle's crisis for personal gain. Hyun Su, exhausted by her hostility, asks what she's even rambling about. Ignoring her, he crouches down and begins examining the shattered bell pieces, wondering whether their composition might have changed. A system notification appears. The Bell of Ramas, artifact imbued with holy power, status completely destroyed, repair impossible. Despite that, Hyun Su grips one fragment and strikes it with full force. Belle gasps and screams for him to stop immediately, but Hyun Su remains calm. Explaining that restoration is still possible, Goal angrily asks if he even understands what unrepairable artifact means. Before she can continue, another soldier shouts that the undead are flooding in again, this time in overwhelming numbers. Everyone freezes in shock, but then Hyun Su realizes it's actually a system update notification. The message announces that the castle region update has begun, and that after completion, a new version of the region will emerge. As the ground trembles, they understand the territory is transforming into a land of the undead. Belle falls into despair, believing this is the end, but Hyun Su refuses to accept that. He insists that if they can rebuild the bell, they can halt the corruption. Belle calls his idea absurd, yet Hyun Su stands firm. He looks her in the eye and asks whether she truly doesn't wish to protect this land. Without waiting for an answer, he gathers the shattered bell fragments into his inventory. Hyun Su declares with fierce determination that they will protect this place together. Captain Cal nods firmly, telling Hyun Su that he'll hold off the undead as long as possible while Hyun Su focuses on the repair. Hyun Su assures him he won't fail. Raising his sword high, the captain roars to his troops not to lose hope that they will fight to their last breath. He urges them to stand their ground, vowing to defend castle territory no matter what. Inside the blacksmith's forge, Belle asks what Hyun Su plans to do next. Hyun Su explains that when he shattered a fragment earlier, the holy energy didn't vanish. It still lingered within the material itself. His plan is to melt it all down and forge a new bell, one strong enough to harness that divine energy. Belle admits she's never seen a method like this before, and Hyun Su simply replies that not everything requires a skill to fix. Sometimes, pure craftsmanship is enough. The smelting process begins, flames roaring around them. Belle watches in awe, wondering if he truly intends to do all of this manually in an age of automation. Hyun Su admits he can't do it alone and asks for her help. Meanwhile, at the game developer's office, the team monitors the castle region update countdown. Less than an hour remains. One developer groans in frustration. His colleague asks why he's so tense on update day, but Kim Tae-soo gestures at the screen. The colleague realizes he's referring to that mysterious blacksmith player. Kim argues that no player could possibly fix something like that. but their female co-worker counters that Hyun Su isn't just any player, he's different. The fateful day of the Castle Region update finally arrives, and battle erupts in full force. Cal shouts orders, commanding his troops to keep the undead from breaching the gates. Exhausted and bloodied, they continue to fight with every ounce of strength. The soldiers suffer heavy casualties, but Cal intercepts a monstrous strike and slays the creature himself. He rushes to check on his remaining soldiers. Rallying them, he cries out to protect Castle, the home where they were born and raised. Amid the chaos, Cal raises his sword once more. Cracks begin forming along the blade, and despair fills his eyes. The weapon finally shatters, just as a massive beast lunges at him, catching him completely off guard. He curses bitterly, convinced that everything will end here. But then, a thunderous chime reverberates through the entire battlefield. The undead clutch their heads and shriek in agony, bursting into flames and collapsing one after another. The holy resonance of the bell spreads far and wide. Captain Cal lets out a joyful cry. The bell of Ramas has been restored. Back in the developer's office, one of them spits out his drink in disbelief. None of them can believe what they're seeing. Against all odds, Hyun Su has succeeded. Hyun Su managed to forge a brand new bell, one unlike any other before it. Inside the developer's office, someone suddenly shouted, demanding to know what was happening and whether the update had truly failed. Kim Tai-suk explained in disbelief that Hyun Su hadn't rested even for a moment since the countdown to the update began a week ago. He went on to clarify that their only option was to melt everything down to its base form, or more precisely, to draw out the divine power hidden within those materials. From that moment on, Hyun Su began the intricate process of divine crafting. Bound by a shared determination to safeguard the castle region, everyone poured their hearts into a single, unified purpose. They believed that their collective devotion would infuse the bell with an even stronger divine force. And then, on the final day, Bella suddenly opened her eyes. Confused, she wondered when she'd even fallen asleep. Her gaze immediately landed on the newly completed bell, and awe washed over her. She couldn't believe that Hyun Su had worked tirelessly for days without rest. A system window materialized before her eyes, notifying her that her apprentice title had begun to glow brightly. Shocked, Bella asked herself if this young man was truly a master craftsman. Hyun Su chuckled, saying the noise must have been deafening, yet she'd managed to sleep soundly through it. Bella quickly protested, insisting she hadn't been out for that long. Hyun Su calmly reassured her, saying they were nearly done and asked her to be patient just a bit longer. Out of the blue, Bella asked if he was the blacksmith named Hyun. Hyun Su confirmed her guess and placed his hand on the surface of the finished bell. The bell glowed brilliantly, radiating divine power, and bore the imprint of his unique sigil. Bella gazed at it, completely mesmerized. She whispered that calling it beautiful didn't even come close. It was a transcendent masterpiece. At that moment, another system window appeared before them. Bella stared at the notification, wondering if this was the true source of the bell's immense power. She admitted she had never witnessed anyone succeed at something so extraordinary. Then, without warning, Bella grasped Hyun Su's hands tightly. With a flushed face, she begged him to stay with her from that day onward. Hyun Su blinked in confusion, unsure what she meant, and half-jokingly asking if it was a confession. Bella, flustered, quickly denied it. The scene shifted back to the decisive day of battle. Hyun Su stood before the massive bell and struck it with full strength. Waves of sacred light rippled outward. The undead shrieked in agony as the holy radiance tore through them, reducing their ranks to ash. The soldiers around him could only stare in disbelief at the overwhelming sight. A system message confirmed it. Hyun Su had successfully created a new bell, eradicated the undead, and now possessed the authority to halt the update and shape a new story. Raising his voice, Hyun Su cried out in triumph that they had done it, thanking the heavens that he wasn't too late. But exhaustion instantly overtook him, and he collapsed, his strength completely drained. Another system alert followed, stating that the reward distribution had been altered. Meanwhile, word of the incident spread rapidly throughout the Aries player community. Someone asked in disbelief if anyone else knew about the blacksmith named Hyun. Post titled, "The Reason the Castle Region Update Failed," surfaced, complete with before and after pictures of the tower and the repaired bell. Players recognized the name Hyun from the creator of the first custom sword, and were shocked to learn he was the one who restored Rama's bell. As a result, countless players began following Hyun Su's workshop. Back in the real world, Hyun Su woke up to the sound of constant notifications, blinking in confusion at the noise. He wondered how all of this was even possible. Then he smiled, realizing how wise it had been to carve his name, Hyun, onto the bell. Now, everyone who visited the Castle region would see it for themselves. Captain Carl burst into the room, his voice full of excitement as he declared that the savior of their region had finally awakened. He explained that he had come, with the Lord's permission, to deliver Hyun Su's reward for crafting the bell. The reward, 330,000 gold coins. Hyun Su stared in shock. The amount was equivalent to 330 million won. The captain smiled, saying that a hero of his caliber deserved nothing less. He then presented a finely crafted box, explaining it was a personal gift from the Lord himself. Hyun Su opened the box. He thanked the captain sincerely, but Carl shook his head, saying it was they who should be thanking him. He explained that, unlike other outsiders, Hyun Su had never abandoned their region. He had stayed and protected them instead. The captain bowed deeply, expressing his heartfelt gratitude. Hyun Su felt the man's sincerity and reflected that he had only done what needed to be done. The despair of the people in Aries, he thought, was no different from the despair of those in reality. Taking his leave, Hyun Su told the captain he would be returning to his old home for a while. The captain immediately agreed. Hyun Su decided it was time to reclaim his workshop and logged out of the game. The captain and his fellow soldiers stared at the spot where he vanished, murmuring that outsiders truly were strange beings. In the real world, Kang glanced at his phone and saw the message, "Mr. Hyun Su has deposited 330 million won." Kang turned to him, amazed, and said that he'd really pulled it off. He couldn't hide his admiration. Flashback to a year earlier, Hyun Su sat with Kang. Kang was carefully reviewing the property documents. He confirmed that the total value came to 330 million and mentioned hearing about the major fire incident. Kang assured Hyun Su that the sum should more than cover the hospital costs and encouraged him not to lose hope. As he prepared to leave, Kang paused, asking Hyun Su to clarify what he had just said. Hyun Su repeated his question. If he could somehow gather the money, would Kang sell the workshop back to him? He insisted that the workshop rightfully belonged to them. It was a place full of his father's memories. After a moment of thought, Kang granted him a 1-year grace period, but he warned him that once that year ended, the property would be sold to the first buyer who came along. Hyun Su thanked him earnestly, and Kang replied that he'd be waiting for his call. Returning to the present, Hyun Su admitted that though he had been the one to propose the deal, deep down he knew he was asking for something impossible. He said the 1-year deadline had just been a rough estimate and the property could have been sold off long ago, but Kang had honored his word. Hyun Su asked why Kang had been so generous with him. Kang replied with a chuckle that Hyun Su was the first person ever to ask to buy back a property he had already sold. He added that he simply wanted to encourage someone like him. Hyun Su thanked him once more, deeply moved. He thought to himself that thanks to Kang, he hadn't had to give up his father's workshop, and now he owed him something in return. Hyun Su asked if Kang had ever heard of a game called Aries. Kang laughed and said of course he had, who in this era hadn't. Hyun Su revealed that within Aries, he was actually a blacksmith. Kang grinned, saying that suited him perfectly. Hyun Su offered to craft him an artifact as a token of gratitude. Kang's eyes lit up as he asked if Hyun Su could make him a custom item regardless of type or level. Hyun Su promised that he would make anything Kang desired. Most. Later, Hyun Su walked into a lively tavern. Bella waved him over, inviting him to join her table. It was the first time they had met again since the battle against the undead. Bella properly introduced herself, revealing that she was the chief strategist of the Golden Shield Guild and the one responsible for its rise to prominence. She said that on that fateful day, she had become certain of one thing, that Hyun Su would one day stand among the top-ranked players. Without hesitation, Bella got straight to her point. When Hyun Su eventually formed his own guild, she wanted to be his first member. Hyun Su teased her, reminding her how she once called him a scammer. Bella instantly apologized. He justified her earlier words, saying anyone would have misunderstood back then. Hyun Su laughed, saying he was only joking. He added that he was also looking forward to working with her, and the two shook hands firmly. But before parting, Hyun Su decided to share his next goal. He revealed that he planned to meet the Sword King Barad, one of the 10 legends. Hyun Su explained that he would enter the Joy Art Martial Arts Tournament, curious whether the winner would receive their award directly from Barad himself. Bella confirmed it but voiced her concern, warning that the tournament gathered the most talented rising stars from every corner and it was far from easy. Hyun Su replied calmly that this was precisely why he had to win. Bella gaped, wondering how he could speak so casually and if he even knew what fear felt like. He told her not to worry. He would aim for the very top using his own craft as his weapon, leaving Bella puzzled and curious about what exactly he meant. The long-awaited day of the Joy Art Martial Arts Tournament finally dawns. Beckel, the head of the tournament, steps forward to warmly greet the gathered outsiders. He declares that the competition will commence the very moment he steps off the stage, and adds that all participants will soon face monsters in battle. With His Majesty King Barad observing them from above, he reminds everyone to conduct themselves with utmost decorum, wishing them the best of luck. Beckel concludes his speech just as a system window flashes, signaling the official start of the tournament. Without warning, the earth begins to tremble violently. Out of nowhere, an enormous golem materializes before them. The system then issues an announcement. The first mission is to survive the golem's assault for 1 hour. Fired up by excitement, the participants rush forward to engage, many assuming that facing a golem would be an easy first challenge. Another system window appears, declaring the first official trial of the tournament. It states that whoever manages to slay the stone golem, level 109, will earn a special reward. One participant gasped at the revelation, questioning if the golem's level was always that high, since the opening round was supposed to be simple. Another contestant recklessly dashes in, shouting "First come, first served," only to be crushed in an instant beneath the golem's colossal fist. The system forcibly logs him out. Panic erupts among the remaining players as they scream and scatter, desperately trying to evade the golem's sweeping attacks. Yet one after another they fall, each being logged out in quick succession. Realization dawns. This battle is nothing like the intel they received. No one can fathom how to bring down such a monster. Hyun Su stands still, silently assessing the chaos while the others curse their luck, recognizing that they've been deceived. Meanwhile, in another part of the arena complex, the tournament head is in turmoil. A high-level golem meant for the advanced division has accidentally been released into this round. Beckel fears that, at this rate, every participant will be wiped out. He decides he must report to His Majesty at once. Beckel bursts into the royal chamber, urgently calling out to King Barad and begging him to halt the tournament immediately. But King Barad refuses calmly, leaving Beckel utterly bewildered. The king then asks him whether he still fails to grasp what's happening. He instructs Beckel to observe carefully. "Look at that warrior," the king says. Down in the arena, Hyun Su releases a radiant arrow that pierces straight into the stone golem. It's revealed to be Hyun Su's third custom creation, the orichalcum fletching arrow, a masterpiece designed to return to its wielder after being fired. The spectators gape in astonishment, marveling at how an arrow could curve back like a boomerang. Hyun recalls that this arrow was his reward from the castle region and admires how perfectly the legendary orichalcum material performs in real combat. Hyun Su fires once more, and the arrow slams into the golem again. On its return flight, the arrow nearly grazes another participant, who shouts at Hyun Su in panic, accusing him of trying to kill him. Hyun Su quickly apologizes. The arrow's strike leaves the stone golem stunned for 4 seconds. The players shout in excitement that the monster is immobilized. They seize the opening and launch a united assault, but the golem abruptly recovers and retaliates with a devastating area of effect attack, hurling them in all directions. The players are thrown back, their formation shattered. The golem then locks its glowing eyes onto Hyun and charges full speed at him. At that point, it's clear he's in serious trouble. One player yells for everyone to hang on just a bit longer, while another screams at Hyun to run for his life. The group endures wave after wave of brutal strikes, barely managing to survive. Just when it seems over, Hyun Su switches weapons, drawing his daylight sword, and declares with resolve that the fight is not yet finished. He meets the golem's crushing blow head-on, parrying it with his blade. Yet the immense force sends him crashing hard to the ground. Back in the castle, Beckel desperately pleads once again with King Barad to stop the tournament, insisting that the warrior appears to have reached his limit. But at that exact moment, something wholly unexpected occurs, something that seizes the king's attention. In the arena, though Hyun Su has fallen to the ground, he immediately activates his emergency god-crafting skill once more. The process completes successfully. What emerges is the Damascus Waldo, a weapon forged specifically to slice through solid stone, and it radiates with power meant for a single, decisive strike. With that one strike, Hyun Su successfully brings down the stone golem. The Damascus Waldo vanishes soon after, as it was only a temporary emergency creation. Meanwhile, a cascade of system notifications floods Hyun Su's vision level-up messages, stacking endlessly. He stares in disbelief as he realizes his level has risen by 14 full ranks. Hyun Su, confused, turns to the others and asks if they weren't supposed to defeat the monster. The players explain that the goal was merely to survive, not to slay something with such a massive level gap. They further clarify that the tournament trial was divided into 3 stages, and that this golem's unexpected appearance had completely thrown the balance off. It was never meant to be defeated. Now Hyun Su finally understands the situation, but before he can say anything more, an intense dizziness overwhelms him and his consciousness fades away. Around him, the remaining players begin speculating. At first they assumed he was simply multi-skilled, but now they realize he's a true weapon master. Some envy him openly, wishing they could possess even one of his incredible weapons. At that very moment, Beckel steps forward and makes an official announcement to all participants. He declares that due to a major organizer error, the Joy Art Martial Arts Tournament will be suspended immediately, and orders everyone to vacate the area. News of Hyun Su's victory spreads like wildfire online. Thousands tune in to a live broadcast showing him lying unconscious in the arena. Viewers flood the chat, demanding to know how he managed to defeat a level 1009 stone golem alone and what kind of weapon and bow he used. Someone suddenly notices that Hyun Su's arrow has fallen to the ground nearby. When the camera zooms in, the name Hyun can be seen engraved on its shaft. The viewers instantly piece it together. He's the same Hyun who created the unrepairable bell in the castle region. The revelation leaves everyone speechless, astonished at how a blacksmith could wield such combat power, and at the unmatched craftsmanship of his gear. Meanwhile, the game's customer service department is bombarded with complaints and questions about the tournament's sudden suspension. The staff struggle to respond, offering only vague statements that it was either a result of Aries' free will or an internal issue within the kingdom of Joyard. Over in the development department, a female staff member rushes to her team leader warning him that there's a serious issue. The man, clearly busy, responds curtly saying he doesn't have time right now. She blurts out that the Joyard martial arts tournament has been suspended. He shrugs it off, saying they already expected that to happen. But she shouts back that that's not the problem. The real issue is that King Barad has summoned the user Hyun Su. The team leader freezes, visibly shocked. He mutters in disbelief, wondering how they could be meeting so soon when even the event arrangements aren't finalized yet. She confirms that Hyun Su is already on his way to the reception hall. The team leader sighs heavily, realizing the chaos this will bring, and accepts that he'll be working overnight again. Muttering to himself, he admits that this player completely defies logic, his every action unpredictable, and worries about what might happen if Hyun Su fulfills Barad's request and their affinity reaches maximum level. He grimly concludes that if that comes to pass, Hyun Su will master the Sword King's swordsmanship and become the strongest blacksmith in existence. The team leader adds that such an outcome won't come easily since everything depends on Barad's own free will. His colleague, however, insists she has a strong feeling that Hyun Su will succeed, quote, which only makes the team leader more anxious, begging her not to jinx it with such ominous predictions. The following day, within the game world, Hyun Su is escorted through the grand corridors to the royal throne room, thinking to himself that this audience with King Barad came far sooner than expected. On entering, he kneels respectfully before the throne, where King Barad addresses him as stranger. The king explains that, under normal circumstances, the prize ceremony would be held publicly before all, but because of the unforeseen incident, he asks Hyun Su to understand the need for a simpler approach. He goes on to acknowledge that everyone now recognizes Hyun Su's remarkable display as a weapon master during the tournament. As a token of reward, King Barad offers him 13,000 gold pieces. But before the offer is finalized, Hyun Su suddenly rises to his feet, interrupting the king mid-sentence, boldly stating that he's heard the king has been searching for him. The guards are instantly enraged by his audacity, deeming such disrespect intolerable no matter how talented the warrior might be. They cannot believe he would dare speak before His Majesty is finished. Hyun Su remains composed and calmly introduces himself as Hyun the blacksmith. His words only inflame the guards further, and they move in to remove him by force. But before they can act, King Barad raises his hand, commanding them to stand down. He confirms that Hyun Su is indeed the guest he has been waiting for. Hyun Su lowers his head once again and greets His Majesty, King Barad, formally this time. Barad, known as one of the 10 legends of Aries, remarks that Hyun Su has certainly taken his time arriving. Hyun Su replies humbly that the journey to this place was not an easy one. Barad then asks if he knows why he has been summoned. Hyun Su speculates that it must be because the king wishes to commission him to forge a sword. The king explains that even the greatest blacksmiths in the kingdom, including the master of the sword tower, have failed at this very task. Thus, he questions Hyun Su directly. What makes him so confident that he can succeed where all others have failed? Hyun Su has journeyed all this way relying solely on one thing, his own skill and conviction. King Barad bursts into hearty laughter, clearly amused and impressed by the stranger's bold confidence. Deciding to put faith in Hyun Su's resolve, the king commands his attendants to bring forth the item he had prepared in advance. Moments later, a radiant chest is set before Hyun Su, glowing faintly with an icy blue hue. Inside lies a lump of 100-year-old cold iron, a rare mineral that has absorbed frost for an entire century, making it resistant to fire and brimming with icy energy. Hyun Su stares at the metal in awe, thinking to himself that it feels like something straight out of a martial arts legend. King Barad then states his request. He desires a sword of epic grade or higher, one that exudes a chilling aura of frost. If the result pleases him, he will grant Hyun Su anything he wishes. But the king also warns, if the outcome disappoints him, Hyun Su will never again be allowed to set foot in the kingdom of Joyard. At that moment, a quest window materializes before Hyun Su's eyes. The quest is titled, The King's Commission. Its completion requires King Barad's personal approval. The reward is the granting of one wish by the king himself, while failure results in permanent banishment from Joyard. Hyun Su accepts the quest with a firm voice, vowing that he will not let His Majesty down and that he will undoubtedly succeed. Suddenly, he feels a sharp chill on his neck as though someone's gaze is piercing right through him. Turning his head, he sees a woman watching him closely. It is Bella, the vice-captain of the Knights of the Kingdom of Joyard, a formidable figure with a level of 301. Hyun Su muses that, while he understands their caution toward an outsider like himself, having a guard tail him so openly feels a bit over the top, but he quickly dismisses the thought, realizing it's only natural for them to be wary. With a faint smirk, he teases her, asking if his staring was really that obvious. Bella responds curtly with a simple yes. Internally, Bella scoffs, wondering who this young man thinks he is. She recalls that His Highness has staked his final hope on him. Silently, she vows that he must not fail. Hyun Su can practically feel the weight of her unspoken pressure bearing down on him. Suddenly, a doorbell rings, a sound that doesn't belong in the game world, startling Hyun Su. He apologizes to Bella, explaining that something must have come up in the real world. He politely asks if she minds him logging out for a brief moment. Moments later, Hyun Su opens his eyes inside his capsule in the real world. To his surprise, standing before him is his landlady. Hyun Su quickly asks what brings her here. The woman explains apologetically that she and her husband have decided to sell the house, as her husband recently lost his job and they need to settle their finances. Hyun Su tells her not to apologize, saying instead that he's the one who should feel sorry for paying below market rent and being late on payments more than once. He asks when he needs to move out, and she gently informs him that she'll need the place vacated within 2 weeks. Though she appears embarrassed, Hyun Su reassures her not to feel bad. He bows deeply, thanking her sincerely and saying he's been grateful to live there. Once she leaves, Hyun Su slumps in exhaustion. Though he's earned quite a bit from his adventures in Aries, his father's hospital expenses amount to tens of millions, and repurchasing his burnt-down workshop cost him $330 million. Now he sits in despair, wondering where in the world he's supposed to go next. Just then, his phone starts ringing. The caller ID shows Kim Hee-won. When he answers, Bella greets him cheerfully, saying she called because she has a great idea regarding his current quest. Hyun Su, still distracted, tells her to call back later, explaining that he's got a lot on his mind right now. Concerned, Bella asks if something's wrong. He tells her that while Barad's commission is important, he's suddenly being forced to move out of his home within 2 weeks. Bella, clearly irritated, scolds him, reminding him of just how crucial this quest is. She insists that there are 2 major outcomes riding on this mission. Bella explains that people online are currently debating whether the champion of the Joy Art Tournament and Hyun the blacksmith are actually the same person. She advises him not to confirm it yet because when the truth comes out later, it will cause a massive uproar. She continues, emphasizing that receiving a personal commission from King Barad, one of the most influential NPCs in all of Aries, is an extraordinary event. Just imagine, she says, Barad unveiling a brand new sword engraved with your name, Han. That, she adds, is the moment your value skyrockets. That's why I told you I'd stand by your side. Hyun Su thanks her sincerely, admitting that her words have brought him back to his senses. He promises to give it his all. When he logs back in, he's immediately met with Bella's furious shouting. Bella demands to know why he took so long to return. Still dazed, Hyun Su asks what happened. Bella, visibly shaken, informs him that His Royal Highness, King Barad, has been trapped inside the dragon's nest. Hyun Su freezes in shock, his voice trembling as he asks, "What did you just say? Where is King Barad trapped?" Hyun Su immediately demanded to know the exact location of the dragon's nest. Bella, incredulous, asked how he could be so shocked when he didn't even know where it was. Hyun Su shrugged, saying he figured he should at least act surprised. With time running out, Bella began her explanation. She clarified that the dragon's nest referred broadly to the fire-type monster region. Among those zones, one stood above all the Ifrit Danger, a place from which no soul had ever returned alive, except for His Majesty, King Barad. Hyun Su questioned why the king would enter a danger he had already conquered, especially without the sword he had commissioned. Bella revealed that the king's target of revenge awaited him within that danger. The words target of revenge left Hyun Su momentarily speechless. Then the scene shifted toward the inferno itself. King Barad stood before the blazing gate of the danger. Wounded and exhausted, he knew that crossing that threshold would mark the true beginning. Even his current sword, he realized, would never be enough. Yet he felt a small relief. His men had at least escaped safely. Barad reflected that reinforcements would not arrive for 3 days. A bitter smile crossed his lips as he admitted that perhaps he should have waited for that mysterious blacksmith to finish the blade. Grief still weighed heavily upon him. He thought of his son, Ban, who would have been around Hyun Su's age, and the memory of Ban's final moments replayed with painful clarity. Ban had died in his arms, calling weakly for his father. Barad had shouted, demanding why Ban came here without his permission. Ban had replied that conquering the danger would make him a son his father could finally be proud of. But as the truth of his weakness dawned on him, he had apologized. Trembling, Barad had pleaded with him desperately to hold on, to cling to life. Yet Ban had only whispered one last apology before drawing his final breath. Even now, that moment haunted Barad's every step. He realized again that he should have waited for the sword, but letting Ifrit escape after all these years was unthinkable. He had waited far too long for this chance. Gathering his resolve, Barad stepped through the burning gates. The monster, however, had always managed to slip past him, until now. Meanwhile, Bella confessed that though trusting a stranger like Hyun Su was difficult, she understood that the king must have seen something in him. She admitted that there had to be a reason His Majesty had placed such faith in him. Lowering herself with knightly grace, Bella bowed deeply and begged Hyun Su as a knight of the Kingdom of Joyard to save the king. A new emergency quest appeared, a sword that can save the king. The objective was to forge a blade capable of rescuing King Barad. The reward, an increase in Bella's trust. The penalty, Barad's death. Hyun Su's mind lingered on the king's loss. He remembered the day he too had nearly lost everything to flames. A question echoed inside him: if his family had died that day, could he have kept going like Barad did? With firm resolve, he swore to give everything he had. Turning to the forge, Hyun Su threw himself into the work with unrelenting focus. Sparks scattered wildly as his hammer struck the cold iron again and again. He recalled that Ifrit's flames could melt even unique-grade weapons. To withstand that heat, this new weapon would have to surpass every known tier. His attention turned to the mysterious, seemingly unsolvable property of the frozen stone. As his concentration deepened, a system message appeared. His understanding of the 100-year-old cold iron had evolved. Another notification followed: Spirit of the Blacksmith activated. The system acknowledged that Hyun Su had immersed himself in the craft beyond any ordinary limit. Passion, resolve, and empathy fused within him, pushing him into a state of absolute focus. The system declared the forging of Hyun Su's very first legendary greatsword. A brilliant radiance erupted from the workshop, blinding and pure. Sensing the powerful surge, Bella wondered if the sword was finally complete. Standing tall, Hyun Su gripped the newly forged blade, its surface glowing with divine light. With unwavering resolve, he proclaimed that the time had come to rescue His Majesty, King Barad. Flames roared from the flamethrower's mouth. Barad let out a cry of agony, collapsing beneath the weight of a devastating strike. Despite his wounds, he forced himself to his knees, refusing to yield. Standing before him was none other than the leader of the Flame Nest Ifrit, a monstrous being at level 409. Without hesitation, King Barad surged forward, for he had waited long enough for this very moment. Gathering his strength, he infused his blade with a radiant aura and delivered a sharp, decisive slash. Yet the strike seemed futile. The creature's wounds regenerated instantly, as though nothing had happened. Ifrit swiftly turned, attempting a sudden ambush from below. Fortunately, King Barad reacted in time and leapt away, avoiding the blow. But as he retreated, Ifrit's blazing fire crept along the edge of his sword, spiraling into a violent tornado of flame, which melted his only weapon into molten ruin. Ifrit pressed the assault, charging up another attack, unleashing a flurry of strikes that King Barad narrowly evaded with nimble precision. Infuriated, Ifrit roared and released a massive wave of fire, trapping the king within a blazing inferno. Unable to rise, Barad cursed under his breath, angered by his own helplessness. Ifrit lifted his flaming weapon high for the final blow, hurling a burning spear straight toward the fallen monarch. But in that instant, a colossal sword of ice materialized out of nowhere, intercepting the fiery attack. Hyun Su and Bella had arrived just in time. Bella called out to the king, urging him to wield the new sword. Reaching out, the king grasped the radiant blade that had been hurled before him. A system window flashed before his eyes, revealing the weapon's details. It was Hyun Su's custom creation, imbued with extraordinary properties, plus 34.3% fire resistance, plus 194% ice attack power, and an astonishing plus 39.7% bonus ice damage against fire monsters. The weapon also possessed an active skill known as Frost Blossom. Hyun Su shouted for him to use it at once. Barad clutched the sword tightly as a surge of freezing energy coursed through his arms. Activating Frost Blossom, he unleashed a sweeping tide of frost across the battlefield. The icy wave clashed with the roaring flames, and Ifrit howled in torment as the cold consumed his fiery essence. Barad declared the battle's end. Then, with one last burst of strength, he charged forward and delivered a finishing strike so fierce that it cleaved Ifrit cleanly in half. The system chimed, announcing that the boss monster had been defeated. But suddenly, Ifrit's corpse began to glow with a menacing red light, swelling as destructive energy built within it. Hyun Su muttered in confusion, but Bella's eyes widened. She recognized it as a death-triggered self-destruction. In the next heartbeat, the entire dungeon erupted in a sea of fire. Bella screamed for Hyun Su to flee, warning him of the danger, but King Barad commanded her to stay back, invoking his royal decree. He had accepted his fate. Looking down at the locket holding his son's picture, he thought solemnly that it was time to bring everything to an end. Bella's heart shattered in despair. She longed to save her king, yet his command bound her in place. Torn between duty and emotion, she stood frozen. Hyun Su stepped forward, declaring that he would go in her stead. Using emergency godcrafting, he forged a flame-resistant shield on the spot. As he moved closer, he called out to King Barad. The king shouted for him to leave, insisting he had already done more than enough. But Hyun Su refused, stating firmly that he had come to stand beside him and would not abandon him now. Hyun Su's gaze fell upon the locket, and he asked quietly if the king's resolve stemmed from the person within it. Rage flickered across Barad's face. and he seized Hyun Su by the collar, shouting that he had no right to speak of such things. The pain of losing a child, he cried, was a burden no one else could ever comprehend. Hyun Su admitted softly that he could never understand such sorrow, but confessed that he too had faced despair, that he had spent every day praying for his father's awakening. Though those prayers were never answered, he found solace in simply knowing that his father still lived. With calm conviction, Hyun Su told Barad that surely his son would have wished the same for him. Tears welled in Barad's eyes as Hyun Su urged him to let his son rest peacefully. In his mind's eye, Barad saw his son, Ban, smiling warmly at him. Overwhelmed, Barad apologized repeatedly, admitting his foolishness. He realized that he must strive to become a father his son could be proud of. Finally, Barad nodded, agreeing that he must no longer remain a shameful man. Hyun Su lifted and carried King Barad in his arms, and together they emerged from the inferno. Bella ran to them, tears streaming, crying out in relief and asking if His Majesty was safe. Hyun Su assured her that the king was fine, but added quietly that he would be gone for a while. A system message appeared, notifying that his HP had dropped to 0 and he would be forcibly logged out. Before fading away, he offered Bella a gentle smile, reminding her that strangers never truly die and then completely logged out. Bella stood frozen, speechless and trembling. King Barad collapsed into her embrace, whispering that the boy had saved him. She called out his name, begging him to stay conscious, but Barad slowly slipped into unconsciousness, a faint, peaceful smile resting on his face. Meanwhile, Hyun Su awoke in the real world. A final system notification informed him that, due to the forced logout penalty, his level had decreased by 1.